we have some more people trickling in. I'm glad to be here after we had to cancel Wednesday night for inclement weather and last Sunday for inclement weather. So we haven't been here on a Sunday for a couple of weeks. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that I'm here. Just a few things to run by, make sure we're all aware of what's going on. We're all on the same page. Don't forget the 30-30-90-10 focus. We started that at the beginning of the new year. It's not too late to join up with that. And so each of those numbers means something. 30 minutes a day in prayer, 30 minutes a day in Bible reading, a 90% church attendance, and a 10% tithe. And there's some information. There's a little pamphlet back there that kind of gives you a little information and some tracking tools and that kind of thing for that challenge to help us kind of go deeper, because that's our theme for the New Year's, is going deeper, walking into the deeper water. So there's a pamphlet back there on the table if you need information or if you lost yours to help you with that. We've been beginning the year on a 21-day fast. Today's the 21st. So at midnight tonight we'll end our official church-wide call to a 21-day fast, though I know some of you are going to continue the fast, and that's awesome. But I hope you've grown in that. I know some of us have talked about feeling like we really feel like we have control of our flesh more than we had before, and others of us have experienced God in such a sweet and a deep way. So I hope that you have gained a real spiritual experience from that 21-day fast. And that's not just something that we do at the beginning of each year and that's it. That is, we do it at the beginning of each year so that we're comfortable with it, so we understand it, so we have done it before, but it is a tool that's available to you any time of the year. So if you feel the Lord leading you to a fast, to fast about a particular thing, to fast and try to get a certain part of your flesh under submission, feel free to be obedient and do that anytime throughout the year. We are hosting our first annual women's conference in less than 2 months, which is awesome. The title or the theme for the conference is Fearless. And so on March 2nd and 3rd, we're going to have a women's conference right here at Refuge. March 2nd, that's a Friday night at 7 o'clock, so there'll be a service that night. And then the next morning, that Saturday on the 3rd, beginning at 10 o'clock and go until 3, there'll be a service, and there'll be a free lunch, and there'll be some breakout sessions. It's a really awesome opportunity for us as a church to really intentionally sow into ministry to women. And so we want women from all churches or that don't go to any particular church. We want all women in this area to feel free and feel comfortable to come and let us sow into them with this free conference and then go back to their churches. Or we're not trying to steal anybody. We just want to sow into and minister to women. So there's a Facebook page for that particular event. It's just Fearless Women's Conference on Facebook. There's an online registration form that you can fill out and have people fill out just so that they're aware of how many people will be here. Guys, remember to try to keep your schedules clear that weekend. Take care of the kids, shoulder a little responsibility, make sure that the ladies are able to be here. Out there in the lobby, don't forget there's a fresh sign-up sheet out for the next 5 weeks that you can sign up to bring things for the coffee bar. Sign up if you're able. And maybe you want to take a whole Sunday. Maybe you just want to bring a pack of donuts one Sunday. You can sign up for one thing. You can sign up for the whole Sunday. That kind of helps to make sure the responsibility of the coffee bar is kind of equally shared among everybody and the same people don't feel that all the time. Don't forget, we don't take an offering in the traditional sense of passing a plate or whatever, but there's a basket back there by the door. If Refuge is your church home, then you can drop your tithes and offerings there and be obedient to the Lord on your way out. One other thing, this Friday we are going to have an STW day. So this Friday, STW is Serve the World, because our church motto or our slogan is Love God, Love People, Serve the World. And so this Friday we're going to have what we call an STW Day, or Serve the World Day. What we're going to do, or not what I'm going to do, there's no we to do, what the ladies of the church have begun working on is, and I think it's really cool, they're going to provide lunch to essentially everybody who works in the city limits. So they're going to provide lunch to the city workers, people who work at the bank, people who work at the library, people who work at the fire department, everybody who works at the middle school. So about 60 people in total. We're just going to take a homemade pork barbecue lunch to with chips and a dessert and a little note from us that just says, "We appreciate you, Refuge Community Church," which I think is awesome. If you would like to help with that, where's Tiffany at? Everybody look at Tiffany. Tiffany waves. I was told that would really embarrass you, so I made sure to do it.
Don't worry, I'll get ready. She's straight up.
Just matching the fuse. So Tiffany's going to help us head that up. If you would like to help with doing that, if you'd like to help, I know one thing that we could still use is people to help pitch in to buy enough pork to feed 60 people. So if you'd like to pitch in on that, you can see Tiffany. If you'd like to come Friday and help prepare the meals or deliver the meals and be involved in that way, you can see Tiffany. So please feel free to see her and get involved. And I think this will be an awesome opportunity for us to reach out and just let people know that we're here and that we care and that we notice the service that they provide and we appreciate it. Anything else that I have? That was a really long list after I got through it. Anything else that I have forgotten this morning? Very good. You guys want to stand up with me? I'm just going to say a word of prayer, and I'm going to step out of the way so we can get into worship this morning. Father, this morning we're thankful for this opportunity to gather in your house, in your name, with your people. I'm thankful, Lord, that we get to be here. I'm thankful for the weather. I'm thankful for the opportunity that things are clear and it's warming up and that we get to be here today. God, we don't come this morning just because we love each other. We don't come this morning just to see each other and to socialize. We don't come this morning, God, because the coffee's good or there's great pastries out there. God, we come this morning because we want to experience you. And so I pray this morning, God, that's exactly what we do. I pray every person in this room that knows you as their Savior, God, that we would just begin to declare your praises and your worship, and we begin to just sing about and declare how awesome you are this morning. As we begin to do that, God, you just pour out your presence on us, because the Word tells us that your praise dwells, your presence dwells, it rests on the praises of your people. So as we begin to praise you, God, would you just pour out your presence on us this morning? Would you speak to us in a fresh and a new way with the Word this morning? Challenge our hearts, draw us with it. And God, as we take time to pray and respond this morning, help us to be obedient. Don't let us, Father, just come and sit through another service, but Father, help us to experience you in a fresh way, in a new way this morning before we leave here. Father, when we leave here this morning, we will say it was good to have been in the house of the Lord. Have your will and have your way in this place this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Come and know how your name. assurance. Spirit come, Spirit come, Spirit come, Spirit come. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Tongues of fire, testifying of the Son, one desire. Spirit come, sweet revival. Prophesy like it is done, one desire. Spirit come, Holy Spirit Hear the word roaring as thunder, with a new future to tell. For the dry season is over, there is a cloud beginning to swell. To the skies, heavy with blessing, lift your eyes, offer your heart. Jesus Christ, open the heavens, now we receive the anticipation, we await the promise to come. Everything that you have spoken will come to pass. Let it be done. Every dream, every word, every promise, we declare it now. We receive it, God. We receive it all. We receive the rain. Oh yes, Lord, like you never before, Lord. We receive the rain. We receive the rain. Let our hearts, Lord, let our hearts with you, Lord. We receive the destroy the plans of your life.
Well, amen. In spite of technical difficulties, I'm thankful for the opportunity to worship. We're starting a new series this morning. We're going to spend probably the next 4 weeks looking at the life of Samson, who is certainly a notable figure in the Bible. I think people remember a few distinct things about him, but we're going to try to dig in and look at his story from beginning to end and try to pull some truths out of the Word and what it can teach us about Samson. Now, in a little over 4 weeks, there's going to be a full feature movie that's going to come out about the life of Samson on February 16th. I have called the theaters, and they're a little annoyed with me because they come out asking way too far ahead of time if they're going to get this movie 4 weeks from now. I'm hoping they will, and I'm hoping we can go as a church and kind of take a church outing and watch this movie after we finish this series. But either way, we're going to dig in and we're going to look at Samson for these next few weeks. In high school, one of the superlatives, probably the most prestigious superlative in people's mind's eye that people vote on is this idea of most likely to succeed. Now, sometimes when you're in high school and people vote on who is the most likely person to succeed, sometimes people will nail that on the head. And those people will go on and they will be vastly successful and they will do all of these great things. And sometimes they'll miss it by a mile, and the person they voted most likely to succeed will go out there and just, everybody's just completely shocked, like, what did they do? They had so much, and then they really didn't accomplish or do anything with their lives. That's essentially what happens with Samson. That's essentially what happens with the main character in the Bible story that we're going to break down over the next few weeks. And so today, we're going to start the study of one of the strangest characters in the Bible. His name is well known. His exploits are well known. But the man himself kind of remains to be a little bit of a mystery. If we were talking about Samson's life, we could really say it had unlimited potential. No man in all the Bible really started out with as much going for him as Samson did, and yet no man really ended with less. Without question, he would have been, if they had taken a poll a few thousand years ago when Samson was ready to go into manhood, if they had taken a poll in his village and said who is the most likely to succeed, no doubt Samson would have won the award. He had it all, and yet he let it get away from him. So his name is Samson. His story that we're going to look at over the next few weeks is found in the Old Testament book of Judges. And so in 4 chapters in Judges, the writer of Judges tells us about the rise and then the fall of Samson. And it's a story that's rich in human drama. It is full of all the things that we say that great stories are full of. It's full of violence, and it's full of love, and it's full of sex, and it's full of passion, and all these strange twists of fate and fortune. It's got it all in those 4 chapters. And the 4 chapters really kind of break down this way. Chapter 13, which is where we're going to look in a few minutes this morning, talks about his miraculous birth. Chapter 14 talks about his untimely wedding. Chapter 15 talks about his battlefield heroics. And then chapter 16 talks about his tragic death. And as I said, almost everybody knows something about this story because Samson's feats are legendary. How he killed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. That's a fun story. How he set fire to the wheat fields by putting a torch in the tails of 150 pairs of oxen. How he killed 30 men to pay off a gambling debt. There's all kinds of good stuff in the story, depending on your perspective of good stuff, I guess. But there's all kinds of interesting stuff in the story of Samson. And I think probably almost everybody, if you have any background in the Bible, almost everybody is aware of the tragic, heroic death when he destroys the Philistine temple by pushing those pillars apart. But if Samson's feats are legendary, so are his flaws. His greatest flaw was this weakness for women. He could never say no to a good-looking woman. And it's a fact, and it repeatedly got Samson into trouble, and it eventually cost him his life. The woman who takes Samson down, Delilah, has become this symbol for the seductive female in culture. And so what we see when we look at Samson is really this bristling bundle of contradictions. He was a man of faith with a weakness for women. He was a man of prayer who was given over to uncontrollable fits of anger. He was a leader of Israel who lusted after Philistine women. He was a man of God who really just lacked common sense. And then that's really Samson. Samson is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. He's listed in Hebrews 11. If you go to that Hall of Faith chapter in Hebrews 11, he's listed there as a man of faith, yet he slept with a harlot. How do we figure this whole thing out? Let's go back to the beginning, and to the very beginning of the story of Samson. So we're going to go back to Judges chapter 13, and we're going to start right there with verse 1. So in Judges 13:1, it kind of sets the scene. It says, "And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. Now the Philistines," we see them repeatedly as these conquerors of the children of Israel over and over again in the Bible. The Philistines are these sea people who migrated from the Aegean area down to Egypt about 1200 BC. And they're defeated by the Egyptians, and so they kind of make their way up the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea into the area that now we call the Gaza Strip. And so they set up what's called a pentapolis, which is an association of 5 cities kind of down that eastern coast there as they start to rebuild and grow their empire. So there's Gaza and Ashkelon and Ashdod and Ekron and Gath, and you're never going to remember that, but those were the 5 cities that they set up. And over time, they slowly start to move south and move southwest and move a little bit more, and they slowly start to move into the area of the tribes of Israel. And they had one big advantage over the Israelites. They had iron. Now the Israelites had bronze, but iron beats bronze any day. And so the squeeze was on, and the Philistines ultimately come to this point of just total dominance. In fact, they terrorized Israel. They terrorized the people of God for 40 years. But God had a plan, and He was going to deliver His people out of the hands of the Philistines, out of the hands of those conquerors. But to make God's plan work, He needed a special couple. And so God finds this special couple in the little village of Zorah, right on this border between Israel and the Philistines. Most of the other families in that area had just moved north so that they could be safe. But there's one particular family that stays put. And so we keep reading. We pick up the story in verses 2 through 5. "There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful, and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be called a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. We don't even get the name of Samson's mom. Like, she's just, Manoah had a wife, and this is what she's told. And I can't help but wonder, what does this unnamed woman think about it all? Like, here she is, washing her clothes, or preparing for supper, or just sitting by herself, and suddenly, an angel of the Lord shows up to her with some pretty amazing news. Even though she was barren, even though she couldn't have children, the angel tells her, dude, you're about to have a baby, even though you're sterile. And then he follows up with these things. But you're going to have this baby, you're going to carry this baby. Do not drink any wine or strong drink. Don't eat anything unclean. When this baby is born, do not cut his hair, for he's going to be a Nazarite, and he's going to deliver the children of Israel from the Philistines. Now, this concept, he's told there that this child's going to be a Nazarite. That concept is kind of foreign to our thinking, but it was really important in that day. A Nazarite was somebody who had taken a special vow before the Lord. If you look back in Numbers chapter 6, in Numbers 6 it describes the commitments that a Nazarite had to make during the period of their vow, the period of their commitment. That they wouldn't drink any wine or intoxicating drink, that they would not touch a dead body, that they would not cut their hair. And the whole purpose of a Nazarite vow was to provide a way that an ordinary person, in other words, a way that somebody who wasn't a priest could dedicate their life to God. And so the Nazarite vow, traditionally, culturally, was temporary, right? It was for a certain set period of time. But this angel comes to Samson's mom and says, your child, this child you're going to bear, is going to be a Nazarite from the womb. In other words, he's taking this vow for life. He's going to live this thing out for his whole life. And that's going to come into play when we get into that affair between Samson and Delilah. Samson's mother, though, even though we don't even get her name, she had to be a woman of great faith. Because verse 6 says that she goes straight. Next verse, and she tells her husband all about it. She even adds there toward the end, I didn't ask where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name. Right? She just says, here's what an angel told me. I didn't ask his name, I didn't ask where he came from. This is what he told me. He told me I'm going to have a kid. She believed him. Right? She was a woman of great faith. She's convinced that she's seen an angel, and since angels don't lie, since angels are messengers from God, she's convinced she's going to have a baby. So far, so good, right? Just a few verses in, a miraculous thing has happened. This woman who was barren is going to have a baby, and she believes and she has faith, and she's excited about it. Now our vision shifts from the mom, I don't know the name, to Manoah, Samson's dad. Because clearly that news is a shock to him, right? A baby, can't drink any wine, a Nazarite, and the biggest surprise of all, our kid's going to deliver our people from the hands of the Philistines. It was a little bit much for Manoah to take in. It was a whole lot that was thrown at him at one particular time. And so he decides he needs to talk it over with the Lord. In verse 8 it says, Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again and teach us what we are to do with the child who will be born. I think this is a crucial response, because I think it really helps us to kind of get a picture of the type of home that Samuel grew up in. Because clearly, Samuel was raised in a household that was a household of faith. There was no doubt in Manoah's prayer. There was no doubt. He didn't question that he was about to be a father, even though his wife has been sterile for years. There's no doubt about his mission. There's no quibbling over the details. There's no argument of any kind. It's just kind of a simple request of God, could you just help us to know how to raise this kid? We're going to get a kid we didn't expect. We're taking this special vow. He's going to be a Nazarite. He's going to deliver our people. God, could you just help us to know how to raise this child that you're giving us? And so God grants that request. And the angel comes back and has a conversation with Manoah. And we're not, if you read there in verses 9 through 14, the angel basically just repeats back specifically, personally to Manoah, what he'd already said to his wife. She's not supposed to drink any wine during the pregnancy. She's not supposed to eat anything unclean. She's supposed to do everything that the angel has already commanded her to do. Maybe Manoah was a little bit disappointed by that response. Maybe Manoah, as we often want, wanted a little more detail, a little more clear instructions about how this whole thing is going to play out. But the angel, here again on this second visit, really drives home the point that this baby is really, really special. It is not every birth that an angel of the Lord comes to announce, right? You have Jesus, and then you have a couple other accounts in the Bible, to Sarah in Genesis 16, to Elizabeth in Luke 1. So other than Samson, angels announce the birth of Jesus, right? Of Isaac, and then John the Baptist. That puts Samson in some pretty good company. And so since he got all that he was going to get from the angel, Manoah asks the angel, would you just come eat with us? Right? And the angel gives him this little short answer, and Manoah says, why don't you just come in and stay a while? Let me make you something to eat. Hang out with us a while. The angel replies that he can't do that. But if they want to, they should offer a burnt offering to God. And if they offer an offering to God, that would be a sign of their wholehearted devotion to God. And so Manoah offers a sacrifice to the Lord on this rock. That's where the fun really begins. Because the Lord did an amazing thing while they were watching that sacrifice. In verses 19 and 20, it says, So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. And Manoah and his wife were watching. And when the flame went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel said make the sacrifice, so they did. And then he goes up in the sacrifice and just disappears before their very eyes. He was right in front of them, and then he was gone. And as you might expect, that made a really strong impression on Manoah and his wife. So first, right when it happens, they fall flat on their faces, right? Scared to death, in awe of this. And they realize that it was an angel of the Lord. Then there's this funny exchange between the two of them in the next, down a couple verses, in verses 22 and 23. And Manoah said to his wife, We shall surely die, for we have seen God. But his wife said to him, If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering at our hands, or shown us all these things, or now announced to us such things in these. In other words, Manoah looks at his wife and says, Honey, we're going to die. And she looks back at him and says, Why do you say that? And he says, Honey, we just saw God, and nobody can see God alive and live. And she looks back at him and says, If God wanted to kill us, we'd already be dead. Why did he accept our offering if he was going to kill us? Why did he tell us we were going to have a baby and how to raise it if he was going to kill us? How could we have a baby if we're both dead? And Manoah, as good husbands do, says, You're right. Good point. That's not exactly what they said, but I think it's probably pretty close to how it played out. That's a good word from the Lord, guys. You should hold on to that. But Manoah caught part of the truth, and his wife caught the other part of the truth, and they kind of put it together, and they figure out this angel of the Lord is not any normal angel. With all of that background information, it's time for Samson to arrive. So in verses 24 and 25, it says, And the woman bore a son, and called his name Samson. And the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahanadan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Now, two things I want you to notice about this. First, the blessing of God rests on Samson even as a young child. And second, the Spirit of God began to stir in Samson as a teenager. It says that it happened, it stirred in him at Mahanadan. Mahanadan was the staging area for the soldiers of the tribe of Dan. And so no doubt Samson liked to go down to Mahanadan where the soldiers would prep and get staged and get ready and train. And he would go down there and watch the men train for battle. And the fact that the Lord stirs in Samson when he's there, when he's at this military staging and training area, kind of indicates, it's kind of foreshadowing of what Samson's life's work is going to be. That he's going to help deliver his people from the hands of the Philistines who have just been oppressing them for 40 years. So I think now, with this first chapter, chapter 13, as a perspective, we can kind of see Samson in a clearer way. We can see him with a better perspective. All that we've learned in Judges 13 really helps us understand that when we talk about Samson, here was a man who was completely prepared to do great things for God. If ever a man should have succeeded, it was Samson. If ever a man had everything going for him, it was Samson. If ever a man had all of the advantages that life had to offer, it was Samson. Like, think about what we already know about him from reading so far in this first chapter. His birth is announced by an angel of the Lord. He is set apart by God. God specifically. He doesn't choose to be a Nazirite. God tells him to be a Nazirite from birth. His mission in life was chosen and called by God to deliver His people from their captors. He's raised in a godly home by godly parents who wanted to cooperate with God. He's blessed by God at a young age. He's empowered by the Spirit. The Spirit stirs in him as a teenager. Samson had it all. And really, we'll never fully understand why Samson's story in his life is so important until we really grasp that fact. Samson is not just one of the guys who got lucky. He was chosen by God before he was born, and he was uniquely gifted for the work that he was supposed to do. And that's the tragedy of Samson's life. He started with everything, and he lost it all. The man who was most likely to succeed didn't. His story is told in this great detail, I really believe, so that we can ponder it and we can think about it carefully and we can draw some lessons from it. So let me start to wrap things up this morning by first of all saying a word to parents. If you're a parent, especially if you're a parent whose children have already left home, and let me say this carefully, you're not responsible for how your children turn out because godly parents do not always produce godly children. Samson is exhibit A of that truth. We wish it was otherwise, but we wish that we could guarantee that our children will never stray. We'd like to say that, but we can't. If anything is clear from looking in Judges 13, it's that Manoah and his wife were godly parents who more than anything else wanted to raise their son for God. They prayed for him. They taught him the Torah. They led him in the paths of righteousness. They lived a godly life before him. They did all the right things. And yet Samson went his own way. And it still happens today. There are a lot of Christian parents who are brokenhearted because their children have grown up and they've left home and they've drifted far away from God and they don't go to church and they don't read the Bible and they don't pray and they don't raise their children in the faith. If you're a parent and you have a grown child who's like that, I want to say a couple of things to you. First of all, don't despair. Even though your children aren't serving the Lord right now, that doesn't mean they can't change later. That doesn't mean that they won't change later, right? We hold on to that promise from Proverbs that if we train up a child in the way he should go when he's old, he won't depart from it. So even though your children aren't serving the Lord, that doesn't mean that it can't change. All those prayers and all those scriptures and those Sunday school lessons, they're like seeds in the soul of your child. And sometimes that seed lays dormant for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden it starts to blossom into this harvest of godliness. It can still happen for your children. Secondly, don't blame yourself. Don't blame yourself for what your children freely choose to do. You aren't responsible for their adult choices. No, you weren't perfect. And yes, there were things that you wish you could do differently, but that's not the point. God doesn't hold you accountable for the choices that your children are making now. They have to answer to God ultimately for themselves, and they won't be able to use you as an excuse. But there's another great application that I want us all to think about. It's the major point from this first chapter in chapter 13 in the story of Samson that I want us to all pick up on, and it's this. It's not how you begin, but how you end that makes the difference. I want to hammer that point home to you. If it was about how you began, Samson would be the all-star of the Bible. But it's about how you end that really makes a difference in this life. Samson had a great beginning. Look at how he ended. Yeah, we've looked here. Here's a little foreshadowing. We look today at how he began with this great godly foundation and this call of God on his life. In 4 chapters, he's going to be enslaved. His eyes are going to be put out. His hair is going to be cut. He's going to be bound with shackles. He's going to be grinding corn like an ox. He's going to be made to perform like a circus animal. Right? It's how you end that makes the difference. And that's the truth that cuts 2 different ways. Some of you this morning have not had a good beginning. Some of you this morning would say, the beginning of my life is like the exact opposite of Samson. It doesn't matter either. Because it doesn't matter how you begin, but how you end that makes the difference. So take heart, man. God is not checking your ID at the door to see what your background is. If you want to be forgiven, you can be forgiven this morning. If you want to be made new, it can happen right now. If you want a new life, you can have it. It doesn't matter where you started. It doesn't matter how you've been living. You can just say, Lord Jesus, I need a new start. And He will give you a brand new life. But the other side of that truth is those of us who did have a good beginning. Samson's story, I believe, is in the Bible so that we don't take anything for granted. Even though you've been going to church, I don't know, for 50 years, you can fall just like Samson did. Even though you think you've got it made, it can happen to you. Even though everybody else thinks you're the hottest thing since Pop-Tarts, you can be the next Samson, right? It can happen to you. Of all the sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Throughout my life, there's been this memorable experience that's just sort of recurred. It's happened to me multiple times in my life that I can remember. It happened to me at my high school graduation. It happened around the time I graduated college. It happened when we stepped out in faith to start this church. And with some variation in how it was worded, people have said to me over and over, Josh, remember what Jesus said, to whom much is given, much is required. People have said to me, Josh, we're expecting great things from you. And those words have burned into my soul, and I've never forgotten them. Because what was said to me could have been said to Samson. Samson, congratulations on a great start, but remember, to whom much is given, much is required, and we're expecting great things from you. Some of you are hearing these words, and you may wonder, yeah, are you talking about yourself, or are you talking about Samson? I'm talking about both of us, because I know Samson well. I lived with him for years. Because the truth is, there's a little bit of Samson in all of us. There's a whole lot of Samson in some of us. He's the perfect man for the 21st century. A man who had it all. An Old Testament baby boomer who's born with every advantage that you could ask for. He had it all, and then he threw it away. Samson would feel right at home with the baby boomers and the yuppies and the Generation Xers and the millennials. He's just like us, and we're just like him. And in the weeks to come, in the next few weeks, we're gonna look a little bit more and learn about this baffling, fascinating character. But for the moment, I want you to keep this thought in mind if you don't remember anything else from this morning. It's not how you begin, but it's how you end that makes the difference. And so this morning, I want us to have a time of prayer before we close, as we always do. Maybe this morning you didn't have a beginning like Samson. Maybe you have a rough past and you've done some rough stuff. It does not matter, honestly. There's nothing that Jesus can't save you from. There is nothing you've done that's stronger than the blood of Jesus. So this morning, maybe you've never been saved and you need to be saved. Man, do not dwell on the past. It doesn't matter how you begin, it's how you end that matters. So think about that this morning. Maybe this morning you had a great beginning. Maybe this morning you were raised in the church. You were raised by godly parents. You've given your life to Jesus. But you just have this overwhelming sense this morning that things are not the way they used to be. Don't cling to how you started. Don't cling to how this journey began for you. You can't hold on to that salvation experience for the rest of your life. There is more for you to walk in and experience with God. It's not how you begin, but how you end that makes the difference. Are you walking with Him in victory, or are you just slowly fading away from the way things used to be? Maybe this morning you need to come and you need to make things right, and you need to just kind of, Lord, give me that first love back. Kind of have a restart and rededicate and refresh your walk with Him this morning. Because it's not how you begin, but how you end that makes the difference. Are you going to finish strong? Maybe this morning you need to come and you need to intercede for prodigal children that are going down a Samson path. You can do that here as well. But whatever you need, as we stand this morning, you can stand with me. Whatever you need, whatever your need is this morning, you can come. If you need to be saved, I'll be standing over here to my right, kind of on this little side over here. We'll keep that clear. If you need to be saved this morning, man, you can come to me. I would love to explain. I'd love to share the Scripture with you. I'd love to pray with you. I'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to lead you in a prayer to make Jesus the Lord of your life if you've never done that this morning. Maybe this morning you need to come and you need to get back on track. You need to say, Lord, I do not want to go down the Samson path. I want to finish strong. I want to walk with you. I want to be on fire for you. I want to be who you've called me to be. I want to finish the way you're calling me to finish. Maybe this morning you need to come and you need to intercede for a child or a loved one who's going down the Samson path. However you need to respond, however you need to pray this morning, could you just be open and honest? If you need to pray, come and pray. If you need to be saved, if you need to make Jesus the Lord of your life, I'd love to pray with you over on this side. Let's come and let's respond to what He's calling us to this morning.